Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nature's Calls podcast. As always, I am your host, Nature Erdman. I'm here to talk a little bit of Chargers football with you. And today I want to kind of do something a little bit different. We've talked a lot about training camp recently. We've talked a lot about the wide receivers and the offensive line because that's really been the hot topic of conversation, and rightfully so. That's been what I think about more often than anything, and I'm sure most of you guys do too. But what I really want to talk about today is the coaching staff. So I want to kind of do a quick breakdown where I think we sit, how I feel about the coaching staff. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me. That's what we're all fans for, is we all have different opinions. But with one love at the end of the day, and that's the team. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's break down how I feel about this coaching staff after year one. Welcome to Nature's Calls. So obviously, it makes most sense to start at the top, and I don't mean the top ownership. We all know how we feel about them. He's actually on a heck of a return run here right now, so I'm not going to say anything bad about good old Dean right now. But so let's talk about Jim Harbaugh. So I was amongst the majority who were extremely ecstatic about the Harbaugh hire. Still am. There are very few coaches in this league that I would prefer to have over Jim. That being said, about 13, 14, 15 months in, whatever it is now, one full season going into the beginning of his second season, I've had a little bit of in between thoughts. More than anything else, it's different than I expected. One thing which, if I had really looked at the details of the way that he had kind of built things out over his previous visits, but I am surprised at the patience that he's taking. So, combination of how quickly he wins everywhere he goes, for the most part, in his previous tenures, how quickly he got burnt out other places he goes besides Michigan, um, as well as just how quickly he finds success. I really expected, on top of the fact that it's a 4 year, like let's not forget his contract was it a 4 or 5 year? Either way, it was not. He didn't come into the team getting a Gruden 10-year deal here. Like it was not a long term deal, and we know he's getting a little bit older. And so I'm a little bit surprised, not unhappy, but surprised that he's taking such a patient approach to the way that he's built the roster. So I really expected us to clear out a ton of space, take our lumps year one, draft well. Now we've done quite a bit of that. We've cleared less space and things like that than I thought. I thought we'd get a little more aggressive, but we've gotten very non-aggressive, and not in a bad way. Really focusing on depth of the roster, building a quality roster. And you could say some of this may just be Ortiz. I'm not sure how much Harbaugh's really kind of played a part in this, but you can't tell me that he's playing no part in it. But building a lot of depth on the roster, not focusing on top end talent as much, not going after big names, not making huge spending even once we did have all that free agency money. And then you look at this year and it's very similar tact. Leave enough money in case anything clears up, in case we need to make any moves, any changes. Shore up the roster, provide a ton of depth, no real big splashes anywhere along the way. And it just seems like that's the plan moving forward. Don't hate it. That's how well-rounded teams are built. And so I just did expect him to be a little bit more gung ho. So definitely would say that overall, I would think it's a net positive. But given the fact that we had expectations as fans, as media members, that the fans are all tired of hearing from, um, and just how he's performed everywhere he went, I just expected a little bit of difference. So I'm not upset about it, but it has been a bit of a surprise to me about that patience. Um, Outside of that, I mean, up and down as far as certain aspects of this Chargers team are still apparently in our DNA. Certain things that we just can't shake. Looking on the way that we performed in the playoffs last year, but I talked extensively about it. Some on podcasts, mostly on Twitter, things like that. We did not have a talented roster going into the season last year. We ended up 11-6. A lot of that came down to the fact that we were a better coach team than in the past. So there has been improvements there, but there are certain aspects of this team, offensive line woes, playoff struggles, things like that, that throwing away games in very Chargersy fashion. Um, that really frustrated me last year, and have frustrated me every year. But some of that I think is going to take a little bit of time to shake. I'm glad to hear that the culture feels like we're getting away from those woes, but we're going to learn a lot this year based off of the performance of this team. How we Now he's had a full season to build a roster, not just most of a roster, patch one together, but he's been able to build a roster in his image, what he wants to do, how he wants the team to look. Um, we've had two draft cycles to be able to get the guys that you want to get that would fit for you and what you expect this team to look like. Um, the offensive line doesn't look like the tip of the spear, but let's not even talk about that right now. But yeah, so this year I think with much improved competition, significantly harder schedule. Now all of those playoff teams going to be playoff teams. No, not necessarily are the teams that we have both in our division and other guys that we play on the road. And just across the season in general, are they improved versus what we had last year had to face? Absolutely. So I do expect us to have a harder road to the same record. But if we have the same record, if we go 11-6 with this schedule, I will consider that a very great success. 12-5 has a very good chance of winning the division unless the Chiefs have spent the entire summer preparing more sacrifices for their black magic that they did all last season. So who knows exactly, but I think that it's going to be extremely telling to see kind of where I stand when you come to the end of the season. Now, let's get through the rest of the coaching staff. Let's start with the positives in Jesse Minter. Um, Having Jesse Minter is a double-edged sword because I love him. I don't want him to go anywhere. He's going to probably price himself out of being an assistant coach or a defensive coordinator, in this case, for very long. Like if we falter with our defense faltering to a heavy level against this schedule and what our offense still looks like and things along those lines, I think we are not the caliber of team that we want to be. Now, if the defense doesn't falter, obviously not necessarily the number one scoring defense, but is still top 6 to 7 in pretty much every metric, especially if the run stop percentage and everything else improves. I expect Jesse Minter to get calls very quickly. Now, I don't think he necessarily leaves for college on the first go round, but depending on what that second year looks like, I think he could probably be seeing head coaching offers very, very quickly. And I know he loves Harbaugh, but at the end of the day, everyone's a coach in their life professionally to become an NFL head coach. That's the goal. No one's going to turn that down. So, extremely worried that that's something that we could see on the horizon, but he is by far my favorite coach on the roster right now from a performance standpoint. What he's been able to do with that defense, the creativity he used, the way that he utilized players that had been so underutilized in the Staley defense. And so it's just been fantastic to see the career resurgence from some of these guys, how Perryman's played, obviously Derwin has been a huge one. The way he utilized what I consider bottom of the barrel cornerbacks, and I still have concerns about that room, but the way he utilized the guys that he had out there last year gives me significantly more confidence in what the guys that we can have this year can actually do. So obviously the way he disguises some of his looks, if we get a little more athleticism along the defensive tackle position, I think we're going to see even more creativity and more disguised pass rush. And he's one of the best in the league. A lot of people know about it. Way more people than they should don't know about him. So we'll see how it shakes out, but I expect him to be. Let's just enjoy our time with Jesse Minter. How about that? Opposite end of the spectrum, Greg Roman. If you want to keep Justin Herbert in the same system, Greg Roman was the perfect hire because he's never going to get a head coaching opportunity. Never say never. Like 5 years of continued success. But like if Vic Fangio's not getting a job, no, sorry. Spags. If Spags isn't getting a head coaching job at this point, like what is Greg Roman going to have to do over the next 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 10 years to get a job as a head coach? Like I don't see it happening. Um, so I'm happy that we're going to have some long-term continuity along the offensive side of the football, but obviously that's because of his history. Um, Overall, not a fan. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Everybody knows it. The what he does successfully in previous locations with the run game, I love that for us. But the way that he schemes the passing attack, especially in today's modern NFL, I don't see it being enough. I don't. I think if we become a championship caliber roster, he's going to hold us back. I truly believe that, and I hope so desperately that I'm wrong. Um, but if we can even develop a semblance of a run game, if we can be top 15 this year, if we can be top half of the league in effective running yards per carry, everything else, if Marion Hampton is what we all think he is, if Najee Harris can see the field again, like we should see massive improvements in the run game just from personnel increases there and along the offensive line. That should do tremendous wonders for us, and we will very quickly find out how much Greg Roman's play action concepts and everything else will work when he has a successful run game that's been modernized, because I know he took some time away to really think about how he was going to modernize his offense. So I just I have a hard time with it, just watching the route concepts, the two tight ends on the field when we had no talent at tight end last year. Thank you, Will Disley, for everything that you've done, but that was not your designed role, and I think everybody knows that. The way that it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing looking out there at these route concepts and thinking that that offensive coordinator put anybody in a position to succeed, because he just didn't. Like, you can't honestly convince me that any of his passing route tree concepts and anything else does anything but make life more difficult on the quarterback and receivers. Um, but maybe I'm going to be wrong this year. Maybe it'll all be different. So plan for the worst and hope for the best, I guess, boys and girls. Let's do it. Um, on to sunnier subjects again. Let's talk about the third of our big three assistant coaches, all of our coordinators, and that's Ryan Ficken. He's one that's a little bit more hard to project because we've seen such a decrease in head coaches being hired from the special teams position. I know John Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator when he got hired. I do think that there's a very real chance that Ficken gets poached if he continues to be like the best special teams coordinator in the league, as well as interviews well. That'll be a huge aspect of this. I don't know how Ryan Ficken is as a leader. I just know the results that he's produced. And on special teams, working with so many young kids and things like that, especially, I would expect it to be a strong suit of his. So kind of curious to see how that all shakes out, but I would not be surprised if he ends up with a college coaching gig first. He's one of those kinds of players that I could see him transitioning to college football. Um, but if he gets an NFL opportunity, same thing I said with Jesse Minter, nobody's passing that up. So I love Ficken, absolutely love him, especially with all of the woes that we had for 10 years as Chargers fans. If we can have him for another 10 years and maintain a top 5 to 10 special teams unit in the league, obviously I will take that all day long. Obviously I would love that. But I just think that his caliber of coach and the results that he's put up, it's just going to eventually burn itself out. And like I said, I would expect him to go to college more so than getting a head coaching opportunity in the NFL, but never say never, you know? So good and bad, good and bad to the two sides. Oh, let's talk another high ranking person, Chad Alexander, assistant GM. Um, I think it's probably his last year. If this draft class hits, there's no way that he's not gone, right? Like, he was taking interviews last year. Raiders and someone else, Jaguars, had him on the books for interviews. I mean, with the Rooney Rule side of things, he's going to get interviews probably no matter what. But with the success that he's had in the draft situation and the way that we all kind of view Ortiz so far, as well as the fact that he's going to kind of get an extra foot in the door a little bit easier. From the interviews that I've seen with him, the guy's just smart as a tack, and the results speak for themselves. And I think you're going to find a lot of people who can't say no to him eventually when GM openings start to really open up across the league. And so whether that landscape is tight or robust next year will probably determine if he gets hired as a general manager next year, but or in a high ranking official position within another team. I don't know, would be higher for him besides going to a GM, but I would expect that to happen likely, if not this year, the following year. And if we have the success that we hope we're getting out of some of these late round guys, I would be astonished if it's not next year. It is just the guys. I mean, he's partnered with Ortiz. There's no real differentiating what one guy does versus the other, but the success that they've had so far, um, it makes a lot of sense that that would be a route and a very wise move for some team out there to go grab him. And I believe the Rooney Rule side of things may get us a compensatory pick. We'll see how that all shakes out. I'm not going to count on it. I'll just be happy for the guy for getting a hell of a job. So those are kind of my high ranking officials, more positive than negative by all means. And I think everybody knew who the negative was going to be between the history and performance last year. So, but Harbaugh, I would say probably give him somewhere around a B for this year, probably a B minus as far as what I'd give him with his Chargers tenure so far. Jesse Minter is an easy A plus. Ryan Ficken, his tenure reaches back years now. Still give him an easy A. And then Chad Alexander, again, hard to differentiate exactly where that comes from, but you can't put him any less than a B from what we've seen success rate wise so far. So very solid on all of those fronts. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky as far as turning over more of the roster. As long as those guys stay here, I think we're pretty good. You might have a guy, an assistant leave once a year, things like that. But there's a lot of there's a few assistants that I think are going to very quickly get offensive and defensive coordinator positions. Um, Either they because of connections that they have around the league, or because someone like Jesse Minter, Ryan Ficken go get head coaching positions somewhere. And the big two on defense, and really the big one off the top is Clinkscale. The way that he coached up those DBs, handled those young rookie guys, handled a guy like Christian Fulton that's been closer to washed than productive over the last couple of years. What he's done with those safeties in that safety room, the way he's figured out how to utilize Derwin or get him where we need to be as the big nickel in there. How much of that's Minter, how much of that's Clink, I'm not exactly sure, but I just even hearing the way that people talk about him around the league, as well as the results performance side of things. Can you imagine him not being someone's defensive coordinator? If Jesse Minter gets hired, I would expect him to be defensive coordinator before he ever walks out of the building. Are you kidding me? He's one that I think is going to go very sooner than later. I do like Mike Elston. I think that the defensive line has overperformed versus the talent that was on the roster. But this year will be very telling for him. Not someone I'm worried about right away, but someone I'm happy with, would prefer to stick around and go from there. But if he leaves, there's only so much you can do. On the assistants, just so you know, it's going to be mostly positive. I'm not going to dig into the people that I don't know enough about their job to sit here and talk smack about them. On the offensive side of ball, obviously Andy Bischoff makes the most sense as someone to probably get another position. But again, without the offensive coordinator moving and Greg Roman, I don't see as much movement on that side of the ball. Whereas when the first domino falls of Jesse Minter, I expect the others to go. Mike Devlin, Marcus Brady, they're all they're fine coaches. I'm not saying anything negative about them. I'm not saying anything overly positive about him. Sanjay Lal, I love the way that he speaks in interviews and everything else. I've heard some people around the league talk about him and just speak about him incredibly glowingly. But again, you're a couple years out, I think, from head coaching or offensive coordinator opportunities for a chunk of those guys. But something to just always consider. This roster is going to continue to turn over year if we have success. That's what happens to the best teams. They get cannibalized in free agency and their coaching staff. And so I do have the utmost faith in Harbaugh. It's I'll say at most. I have a lot of faith in Harbaugh to continue to put together excellent coaching staffs. Roman just will confuse me for the rest of my life. Jeez, sorry guys. But so yeah, I mean, from a positional coach standpoint, it's one of those things where you're gonna have some good, you're gonna have some bad, and there's so many different levels to this that it's hard to really identify where the success is coming from. Obviously, you can look at interviews, you can look at the way that people speak about people, but more often than not, when you have positional coaches leaving, it has a lot more to do with the relationships that they've built, especially when someone is in their own building. But Minter's been around, talked to a lot of people in college and the NFL. He's worked with the Ravens. He's done the whole 9 yards. He has probably built a good amount of connections around the league in some shape or form. So I think that it's something we need to really have on our radar, and especially this year, Chargers fans, soak it up. Soak it up while we have it, because if we're a top three defense in the NFL this year, oof, we might get by for another year. But John solely because he didn't have any interviews this year. But don't be surprised if he's gone. Don't be surprised if he's gone at all. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. That's something fun for me. I do have an extra about 5 minutes or so. So I do want to talk about some news that's come out more in relation to um, the Hall of Fame game, the first preseason game tomorrow, which is probably when you guys will be seeing this. I post all my videos following day after recording night before. So um, I'm very intrigued to see exactly how they plan to deploy things and what we're going to see. The way that they talked about Trey Lance playing 3.5 quarters, I think he said. Maybe 2.5, no, 2.5 quarters. And then DJ would take over in the second half, and Heineke would be essentially just a backup for the day. Herbert's not going to suit at all. So I think that that's going to be incredibly telling as far as what they're looking for. So I'm curious, is it a competition with Taylor Heineke? Is it a competition with DJ Ukulele? Or is this purely are we going to carry three running backs? Does he have enough talent to do it? And I'm okay with that aspect. That makes sense to me. I know people have been saying Trey Lance has been unlocked and playing incredibly well. I don't know. I saw some of the throws that he had early on in training camp that were just horrendous. And I haven't been to training camp, watch full length videos, anything like that, as far as video footage of how his performance has been. So I'll take it with a grain of salt. I'm curious to see what they're looking for in that, though. That being said, I'm glad that we have someone better than probably DJ out there for the starting portion of things. I would like to see Heineke a little bit, just because I think he's going to have more of a pocket presence, and Trey Lance is going to have some more designed runs around him. And I really want to be able to evaluate the guys around him as much as possible. That is by far my biggest question mark. And honestly, that's what the preseason's for. I'm sure we're all on the same page with that. I did find it somewhat interesting that QJ's not playing in the preseason whatsoever. Um, Again, it doesn't hurt my feelings though. Like I would have loved to, as a fan, see him next to Trey Harris and see him next to KLS and anybody else who can play, and Rieger and everything else, so I can get a better idea of where they stand side by side. That being said, QJ was never going to get cut. Most of these guys aren't, but QJ was never going to get cut. He is still a very highly productive receiver overall in the NFL. Like, he is not, he has his shortcomings, but like, it makes sense to sit him through this period and really just start those guys out there. Because I mean, KLS and Trey Harris are going to make the roster. Their playing time is very undetermined at this point, but they have so many questions about everybody behind him. And I've heard good things and bad things about everybody. We've all heard bad things about Jalen Rieger. I haven't heard the coaching staff say a bad thing about him, especially in this cycle. Delavon Campbell's been balling out, the other UDFA or whoever that they signed the other day. Like, there is question marks at who's going to round out the receiver room, and they really need to get an accurate eye on it. So I'm perfectly okay with QJ sitting this one out. But more than anything, I'm really curious about what that center position snap count looks like, how they start things on the left guard, how quickly they rotate those positions in, as well as just see the performance from that aspect. Oh, but most importantly, Omari and Hampton's playing, so that's cool. Not really surprised, but really excited to see number 8 in there in powder blue, running on the field, see what he's made of, see what he looks like at the NFL level outside of UNC competition, um, and just really get an idea of what this offense could be. So, really excited to really focus on those couple of points. I've said really like 11 times, but very excited to focus on those couple points in the game tomorrow and just see where this team is trending. Hopefully, the cornerbacks can hold up. Hopefully, we're seeing some growth from some of those other players out there. And hopefully, we beat the brakes off of them because I am so thrilled to have football back, baby. I would hate to start the season, even if it's preseason, with being less than thrilled at this Chargers team. So, I mean, it's going to take a lot for me to have a night of football spoiled, but hopefully they don't try and come through for me on that side of things. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any kind of thought behind any of the quarterbacks that you think's not quarterbacks, coaching staff, that's a hot take, put it down here. I know some people are frustrated with Harbaugh. I know some people are okay with Roman and not really worried about that. Bringing up this standpoint of the stability at the offensive coordinator position, does that make you a little bit happier with the current signing? Um, yeah, let me know what you guys think. But anyway, it was a pleasure coming down and talking to you. We've got Chargers football tomorrow night. I could not be more excited, and you can bet your ass I'll be getting in front of this mic and talking to you guys about it real soon. So, thanks for tuning in. These were Nature's Calls. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please give me a follow on Twitter or X at Erdman Chargers. Or if you're not already there, go ahead and hop over to my YouTube channel, like or subscribe at Nature's Calls Pod. Thanks for listening.